G'day folks, and welcome to this Mark Simonitch double unboxing. North Africa 41 recently arrived in the post, and I've had Salerno 43 sitting untouched on the shelf since it's arrived earlier this year. I'm going to work with the newest first. I'll open Salerno 43 in a moment, but let's crack open North Africa 41, the newest release in Mark Simonitch's 1940 X series, which features such titles as Holland 44, Normandy 44, Ardennes 44, Stalingrad 42, Ukraine, I want to say 43, France 40, the Caucasus campaign. Check out my video where I kind of overview this series. It goes up to Salerno 43, where I do a bit of a, I did that video before this was released, so it's a preliminary look at Salerno 43 based on the information I had to hand at the time. Doesn't talk about North Africa 41, and I've got a bit of a rocky history with North Africa games. I should say, here's the box cover, 2023 design, illustrations by Antonis Karides. Back of the box, 2 players, 3 12 hours, 5 complexity, 5 solitaire suitability. I mean, these great games are great solitaire. Why isn't that higher? Why is the solitaire suitability only a medium? I love these games solitaire. These are some of my favorite games to play solitaire. I wonder what's different here. Why is it? I mean, it's all open information from memory. Interesting. Anyway, with 2 paper maps, 2 counter sheets, 1 rulebook, 1 playbook, 2 6-sided dice, 2 setup and reinforcement cards, 2 identical CRT tech terrain effects chart player aid cards, credits. The game includes 3 scenarios: a campaign game, Enter Rommel, and Crusader. We have the familiar unit design that we've seen in other titles of this series. And I pre-ordered this the moment I saw it, I think. There's no hesitation when it comes to Mark Simonitch designs. Rules of play. It's a nice 28-page rulebook, nice index on the back. Looks like the rules go up to about 24 pages, and then there are some optional rules, scenarios, hints on play, and a convoy example. That's interesting, convoy rules. Let's have a quick look through this rulebook and see if we can discern any defining features. All these titles in these 1940X series have subtle distinguishing features. Immediately, for example, I can see the use of these supply units, MSUs and trucks. You know, you're talking about North Africa campaign, you've got to talk about the difficulties of supplies, and it looks like this is one way that Mark is addressing that in this title. What else do we have here? Malta status, interesting. An airfield dice roll modifier, coastal shipping, rail movement. We have some fortifications and control markers. This particular title looks like it has the full retreat markers, which is not in every title. Out of supply, isolated. And then we have, of course, your infantry units typically, or your counters typically have attack strength, defense strength, movement allowance. There's a front and a reduced back, turn of arrival up in the top right corner, stacking value, okay. That's common in some of these titles. We'll find out what stacking is in a moment. And then we have the mechanized units. Now they have tank ratings, red boxes around elite units. Outline indicates a free stacking unit. So let's have a quick glance through. All units with a defense strength in a red box are elite. Those with defense strength in a white box are low quality units. So you'll have elite combined arms shift, determined defense, rules, rally table, attrition, and disengagement. Stacking. There are 5 stacking points, plus of course those free stacking units. So 1 silhouetted tank unit can stack for free. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, a free stacking unit plus the 1, because it doesn't have a number next to it. So if there's no stacking number, it's a 1. Good to know. Sorry, I should have had a quick glance through the sequence of play. Preparation phase, 2 supply points, reinforcements, roll to see the Malta status marker. Okay, flip Rommel marker to its ready size. So there's going to be a Rommel marker. Advanced units in the surrender box. Interesting. removals, withdrawals, action phase. Players conduct 3 action impulses in this phase. Naval transport from Italy, a second action impulse, and then naval transport receives a favourable -1 DRM. Interesting. Summary of an action impulse. Allied initial phase, Allied movement phase. This is quite a bit of a change from every other Simonitch title. So you'll have, if this is an action impulse, you'll basically repeat it 3 times, except during summer turns when there are only 2 impulses. Players conduct, so you'll have an allied player turn. Action impulse is an allied player turn, and then an Axis player turn. And you emit RAL movement for the Axis. Exchange the word allied for Axis and emit. Yeah, interesting. So we've covered stacking, basically land movement. You've got road movement. Highways are facilitate very rapid movement. Tracks help a little bit, and there's no road movement across the desert. Okay, what do we have here? Trackless desert hexes. No unit may move, retreat, or advance under combat into more than 2 consecutive desert hexes in a single movement or combat phase. Good. There are too many North Africa games that just let you roll across the desert. Blood and Sand, I think, is the title that comes to mind. It was just ridiculously open, and your front lines were stretching way out into the desert. And most of the fighting took place out in that desert. Trucks, interesting to see what effect that has. They're non-combat units, they're not markers. They carry combat units, replacement units, or supply points. Interesting. We have rail movement. Okay, the rail line leads from the Nile Delta to Mersa Matra. The allied player may move 1 combat unit, 1 replacement, or 1 supply unit per movement phase along the rail line. Very interesting. Incidentally, I have been to El Alamein, and there's that old rail station out there. So yeah, this was that was the old battered rail station still exists out there. Side note. That was many years ago. It was almost a decade ago that I went out there. I was basically documenting the accessibility of these sites for tourists. So how easy was it to get to El Alamein? The answer, okay, you can get to El Alamein, but to get to the actual battlefield sites was incredibly difficult. You must have a tour guide with local knowledge and local contacts. Off-map boxes, friendly off-map boxes. Italy and Tripoli are friendly to the Axis player. The Nile Delta is friendly to the Allied player. Okay, zones of control. Of course, there are. Okay, so the zones of control. All units must stop. Are there no Zoc bonds? How interesting. Are there no Zoc bonds? There's no. Wow, this is a break. Am I missing something here? We have zones of control. All units must stop and end their movement upon entering an enemy zone of control. It costs no additional movement points to enter. It costs 2 to exit. You can't. Unit that starts its move in an EZOC may move directly into another EZOC and stop. So you can go ZOC to ZOC. Wow, no ZOC bonds in this. It is just your traditional zone of control rules that stop movement. Fascinating. And probably better suited to the North African environment, rather than having sort of these units spread out across, with ZOC bonds in between. So good, interesting change there. Combat basics. Just trying to see if there's anything really unique here. It looks pretty standard. Attack supply. All attacks in which the attacker wishes to use tank shift, you will use tenable points of attack strength require attack supply. Wow. Very interesting to see. So it's kind of really emphasizing the importance of, supply there. Non-combat units, automatic DS, tank shifts, there are artillery support shifts, fortification modifiers, terrain modifiers, combat results summary, determined defense rules in this title, which is interesting. You can attempt to cancel the retreat portion of a CRT by using the determined defense table. I really like that element of some of these designs, so good to see that here. Then there's a desperate defense, so that's determined defense. This occurs when defending units have no retreat path. Okay. Basically, they'll be eliminated. So declare the defending units are in a desperate defense situation, conduct the determined defense in the usual manner. If they fail, ignore it, apply a step loss to the lead unit, and try again. Okay, interesting. Retreats, elimination due to retreat, disruption and recovery. We have the full retreat rules in this title. Advance after combat. If the defender is eliminated or retreats, and all units participating may advance after combat. Length of advance varies depending on the combat results. We're looking at 4, 3, or 2 hex advance. Units may advance in any direction and do not have to enter the defender's vacated hex. Cool, good to see. And there is breakthrough combat rules. Okay. Any combat that achieves advance after combat of 2 or more hexes allows the attacker to conduct breakthrough combat. Only mechanized units, non-mechanized units with trucks may use breakthrough combat. Allows units to conduct an attack. I really like the breakthrough combat rules. It just adds that extra dimension to combat. If you can break through, this is one of the aspects that I really like about some of these titles. The breakthrough combat. It just gives you that extra level of consideration. I want to break through here, move here, conduct breakthrough combat here. Breakthroughs are, fascinating. So good to see breakthrough combat rules in this title. Supply rules and attrition. Very interesting. We have supply lines, road portions. We're going to have to read up on that. Isolation, attrition. Then we have artillery support units, ASUs, and supply points. We have a range, free supply points, special units, artillery, Rommel, etc. What does Rommel do? Use him to either re-roll an attack die or re-roll one axis determined defense roll. Cool. Air superiority, air units, air support, strafing, air access transport, the long-range desert group. That's nice to see. Replacements, replacement markers, reinforcements, conversions, likely removals, naval transport and ports. Quite a lot of rules around this. Port damage and repair, bombing raids, convoy attacks. Wow. So it's really, there's a lot of sort of Mediterranean Sea activity as well. Benina, Matuba, Crete, apologies. Event table and resource points, cool. When to use resource points, delay markers, the supply attrition phase, interesting. Player rolls 2 dice, consults their attrition table, the result will indicate a section of the map. If you have a combat unit on that map, then you must either remove 1 SP or flip an ASU in that section to its depleted size. Wow. Interesting. And then victory, optional rules for capturing trucks, Oasis supply. I'm never really one to use optional rules. I always tend to use the rules as written. 3 campaigns, as you can see there. 7 game turns long, 19 game turns long, and 3 game turns long. Okay. Hints on play, nice to see. Credits and a convoy example. Very exciting. Lots of great stuff in that rulebook. We have a playbook which has an extended example of play, design notes, order of battle, historical notes, and a bibliography. Rating the tanks in North Africa, Desert Africa Corps, infantry organisation, and a sequence of play. So, here we go. Rating the tanks. The Italians, the British, the Germans, the British cruisers, US tanks, infantry organisation. Some pretty cool historical information there. Bibliography here. Yeah, some great reading material. I won't flick through that, but it's there. Here's the CRT. Let's have a look at this. What kind of CRT is it? All right, at 1-to-1 odds, you have a 1 in 3 chance of an attacker loss, an exchange result, and a 50% chance of causing a defender retreat. So fairly attacker friendly. Okay, it's leaning towards impetus to attack. At 2-to-1 odds, you've only got a 1 in 6 chance of an A1. Exchange, retreat. So you have a 4 out of 6 chance, 2/3 chance of a retreat result at 2-to-1. At 3-to-1, 5 to 6. The exchange result does not retreat. Okay, and at 4-1, guaranteed, or all but guaranteed, with the exception of the determined defence table use by the defenders. Determined defence not allowed up here. -1 DRM on the determined defence table. Cool to see. I like the CRT. I like attacker-friendly CRTs. It really gives you that drive to engage in combat. Really shapes your mentality. Allied event table. That's so cool. You can bring out the long-range desert group, desert air force, bombing raids, etc. The allies can bring out engineers, Flieger für Africa, OKW, Commando Supreme, etc. Summary of the infantry types and their replacement markers. Anti-shipping table. A lot of tables here. Shipping point cost table, port demolition and bombing table. I mean, they're not complex tables. They're pretty easy to read and understand. Axis supply attrition, a disengagement table. I didn't notice that in the rulebook. Disengagement table, 27.5. It's an optional rule, that's why. So that's an optional rule for disengagement. Probably won't use that. Resource list summary and terrain effects chart. Have a quick look through. A lot of clear terrain, obviously. City, rough, tank shifts, possible indications, effects on combat. But yeah, interesting. Then we have some very cool setup charts. Great to see. I mean, these make setup so much easier. Put all the counters on there, then throw them onto the hexes for the various scenarios. Then we have the counter sheets. Typical thick GMT quality, non-rounded corners. So you'll need to use your clippers if you're inclined to do so. I'll give you a closer look at how that all looks. The front side and the reverse side. And what do we have here? Look at this. Available assets markers. Allied markers, so that's an actual big punch-out thing. And Axis markers. Okay, cool. So you actually get a little pad for all your markers to go onto. And supply trucks, fortifications, and other administrative markers. Now there are 2 maps in this title. So in the rest of the box is just the dice. So let's have a look at this map, or these maps. And all right, Alexandria, here we are. It looks great. Obviously, here's the bottom half of the map is the northern coast of North Africa, Egypt and Libya, Cyrenaica. Off to the west further. Okay, so we've got coming down here, El Alamein, Mersa Matra, Sidi Baradi, Sollum and Bardia, Hellfire Pass, coming up to Tobruk up here, escarpment along here, interesting, turn track along the top, some more summaries of supplies along the top there, some off-map boxes. So down the bottom right is the Nile Delta. All right, let's open the other half of this map. It looks really cool. For a desert map, desert maps often look so bland. This looks really nice. I don't know if it's capturing that on video, but it kind of looks, I know it's yellow, but it kind of looks colourful, if I can say that. Just the subtle different changes in the terrain. You've got Tripoli over here, Axis eliminated box. All right, so we come from here, we come through to Tobruk, so there's an overlap along there. Port of Tobruk overlap. We come around to Derna, Mechili, across to Benghazi. You can see the tracks across the desert, and then down around to El Agalia down here. And that's the western edge of the map. We have the Malta status track, convoy modifier, Port of Benghazi, resource points. Here's Malta, up here, Italy, up here, off-map boxes. Yeah, very cool. So it kind of, this is way off camera, but yeah, it overlaps there. You can see the sector markers, okay, for access supply attrition. Very nice looking map. So there you go, folks. That is North Africa 41. I am super keen to play this. I might try to start reading it over the coming days and see if I can get it next week sometime. Might be trying to think of when I'll actually have time to play it, but it's on the agenda. All right, let's have a look at Salerno, because this has been sitting on the shelf. It's a slightly thinner box. You can't quite see that at that angle, but and I think one of the reasons I didn't crack this open straight away is, I guess, there's a couple of reasons. Salerno, it doesn't really, I'm not really taken on the idea, sold on the idea that it's a good situation to simulate in a game. And I say this as somebody, so I've published on Salerno. My second book, a third of it was dedicated to the mutiny at Salerno. Where is that? It's just off to my left there, out of reach. But yeah, so historically I've conducted research on Salerno, but the campaign itself doesn't hold much interest. Okay, so let's have a look at the rulebook here, and I'll flick through this a bit quicker for Salerno because it's a slightly older title. You've probably already seen much of it. German play turn first, combat supply, allied play turn, stacking, 6 stacking points, 1 silhouetted unit can stack for free. You've got land movement, zones of control, but no Zoc bonds. Oh, we do have Zoc bonds over the page here. How to form a Zoc bond. Okay, so Salerno features Zoc bonds. Standard rules for Zoc bonds, standard rules for combat. This features a main attacking force. I don't know if there was a main attacking force in North Africa. I don't recall seeing it. For each attack, the attacker must declare 1 formation as the main attacking force. They attack at full strength. All other units attack at half strength. Okay, so formations are usually divisions. So yeah, you declare the division and they attack at full strength. Coordination, minimum, maximum odds. Okay. Automate DS, combat modifiers, tank shifts, naval support, air support, artillery support, summary of combat results, determined defense rules, desperate defense rules, delay and partial success. Interesting. Retreats, retreat and terrain, disruption recovery, full retreat effects, advance after combat, breakthrough combat, nice to see. Interesting at Salerno that there's breakthrough combat, but anyway, supply and isolation. I wonder what the retreat breakthrough group. Yeah, I wonder if it's just a bit slower than other forms of breakthrough combat in other titles. Supply and isolation, artillery support units, ASUs, beachheads, ports and naval transport, special unit summary, replacements, reinforcements, the weather track, and victory. 21 pages. So it seems to be a slightly easier title compared to North Africa, and I think compared to other titles in the series. We have scenarios: Avalanche, 8 turns, the full campaign, and that's it. 2 scenarios in this: hints on play, design notes, and an extended example of play which runs over several pages. So you do have, it's just the one book with this. You don't have a playbook, it's just the rules of play, bibliography, and extended example credits all within that one book. We have the one map. Let's have a look at this. So there we go, that's a footprint, small footprint, relatively small map. Here's Salerno, here's your activity, here are the paths across the mountains. Turn record track off to the left. Yeah. So that's kind of, this is your area activity for Salerno. Probably a good introduction to this series for yeah, good starting point. The Caucasus campaign is a good one. France 40 is a good starting point. What else? Holland 44 is a good starting point. Normandy's interesting. Yeah, Ardennes 44 is complicated, but probably my favourite. And yeah, Salerno 44 is probably, from what I can gather, having not played it, my initial impression is this might be a good starting point for somebody. Again, great setup charts. Very similar CRT. I want to say it looks exactly the same. So attacker friendly. We have sequence of play, some charts there, terrain effects, the hills and mountains will play a critical role here. There are 2 of those, and 1 counter sheet featuring all the counters. So yeah, relatively low density compared to other titles, and much more sort of focused activity around those mountain passes. I anticipate. I'm just guessing here, based on what I've read and seen. So there you go, folks. I didn't show you the back of the box, so we'll put this back in. It doesn't really need a deep box. And there you go. 5 complexity, 5 solitaire suitability, 2 players, 2 to 6 hours. There you go, folks. So, Mark Simonitch, add that to the Mark Simonitch collection. That's probably much easier to get into, but I'm really keen to see all these sort of supply rules and the Mediterranean rules that North Africa 41 holds. So that'll be coming up first. Thank you, and they're both, of course, released. This is it says 2021, so maybe that was last year. It's been sitting there longer than I thought. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks, and take care.